Hello, I am Teresa Albarisi, a member of the worship team and your lay liturgist for today. I welcome you to this virtual worship service of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. Because of the continuing danger of the coronavirus, the building remains closed, but the church remains open. Today and every Sunday, there is a live virtual coffee hour from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. with breakout rooms for conversation. Please check your email and the website at uchbg.org for details and updates. Please send your joy or sorrow via the link in the email you received in the announcement of today's service and indicate whether you give permission for it to be read in next week's service. If you are a visitor or a newcomer, I invite you to explore our website uchbg.org to learn about the church and its many activities. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome here at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. Please join me in lighting a chalice or a candle at your own home as you are able. We gather this hour as a people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, with dreams of new beginnings. May this light inspire in us new ways of thinking, being, and doing. May this day be a time of new beginnings. If you would join me in the unison words of affirmation, love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another.
This little light of mine Hello, my name is Corey and I serve as your DRE. Today's story is titled Maybe by Kobe Yamada, a story about the endless potential in all of us, as you are the only one there ever will be. You are unique. Just the odds of you being here in this exact place and at this exact time are so great and so rare that they will never happen again. Let's begin our story. Have you ever wondered why you are here? You are the only you there ever has been or ever will be. You have so much to offer. Maybe you will invent something that none of us has ever seen before. Maybe you will build things that reach high into the sky. Your life is yours. Try as many things as you can try. See as much as you can see. Wherever you go, take your hopes, pack your dreams, and never forget, it is on journeys that discoveries are made. Maybe you will help others to see the beauty in each day. Or maybe you will lift cheering crowds onto their feet. Do everything with love. Follow your heart and see where it leads you. Maybe you are here to shine a light into places that have been dark for far too long. Maybe you will speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Maybe you are here to help in ways that only you can. There will be struggles. There will be fears, and it won't always be easy. At times it would feel really hard, and you might make a mess of things. You may fall down. You may fail. But you will also get back up, and you will rise a little stronger and a little taller, because there really is more inside you than you know. And this world needs your gifts, your talents, your big ideas. And maybe you are just getting started. What if you are only scratching the surface of what you can do and who you can be? What if you have talents you haven't discovered yet? There is something powerful, even magical, about you. You already have everything it takes to do big things. Maybe you have no idea just how good you really can be, and maybe you don't know how much you matter. But maybe, just maybe, the world has been waiting centuries for someone exactly like you. And one thing is for sure, you are here, and because you are here, anything is possible. Now, as you just heard, this story is for everything you will do and everything you could be. It's for who you are right now, and it's for all the magical, unbounded potential you hold inside. Blessed be.
In the flash of hate and terror, in the sinful light of fear, there's a yearning deep in every soul, a longing to hear. Love has already won, love has already won, just as sure as the day greets the morning sun. Love has already won,
Today I'm reading to you a poem by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. It is entitled Wild Dreams of a New Beginning, and it was written in 1976. There's a breathless hush on the freeway tonight. Beyond the ledges of concrete, restaurants fall into dreams with candlelight couples. Lost Alexandria still burns in a billion light bulbs. Lives cross lives, idling at stoplights. Beyond the cloverleaf turnup, souls eat souls in the general emptiness. A piano concerto comes out a kitchen window. A yogi speaks at Oh Hi. It's all taking place in one mind. On the lawn among the trees, lovers are listening for the master to tell them they are one with the universe. I smell flowers and become them. There's a deathless hush on the freeway tonight as a Pacific tidal wave a mile high sweeps in. Los Angeles breathes its last gas and sinks into the sea like the Titanic, all lights lit. 9 minutes later, Willa Cather's Nebraska sinks with it. The sea comes over in Utah, Mormon tabernacles washed away like barnacles. An orchestra on stage in Omaha keeps on playing Handel's water music. Horns fill with water, and bass players float away on their instruments, clutching them like lovers horizontal. Chicago's loop becomes a roller coaster. Skyscrapers fill like water glasses, Great Lakes mix with Buddhist brine, great books watered down in Evanston. Milwaukee beer topped with sea foam, Bowflow of Buffalo suddenly becomes salt. Manhattan Island swept clean in 16 seconds, buried mist of Amsterdam arise as the great wave sweeps on eastward to wash away overaged Camembert Europe, Manhattan steaming in sea vines. The washed land awakes again to wilderness, the only sound a vast thrumming of crickets, a cry of seabirds high over its empty eternity as the Hudson retakes its thickets and Indians reclaim their canoes. Reverend Johnson recommended this poem for me today, and it's just perfect. It's a great combination of hope, fear, and possibility. What if there was a crazy dream and our country had the chance to start over, land discovered, and country established all over again? Would things change? What if Native Americans were treated with respect and treaties were honored? What if slavery was abolished during the writing of the Constitution? Or better yet, what if our country was built with no slavery at all? What if all men and women were truly treated equally? What if all people believed that we are caretakers of the earth to share resources and pass them on to the next generation? Well, okay, that's a pretty wild dream. We cannot undo the past, but just like in the poem, I feel like a tidal wave has taken over our lives, the social, political, financial, physical, mental, and environmental part of our lives. Some of us are riding high on the wave and fairly safe, while others are being pulled down over and over again and pummeled by rocks. It's just so hard to think about. Everything is jumbled together. It's just so sad, so depressing. But at some point, the wave will run its course. We will have to pick ourselves up and sort through what is left. What will we do first? What do we focus on? Do we rebuild our lives and our country exactly the same way? I think we're at a pivotal time in our country, like many of us think. Yes, we are incredibly divided. In fact, just this week, unhappy people have assaulted the Capitol and gotten in. It's very scary. But at the same time, there is hope. We have more people talking about topics that need to be discussed. We have people from all ages and backgrounds noticing that the American dream only comes true for a few, not all. We have more people voting, using their voice to direct how they want our country to be. And we are waking up and realizing that our democracy is really fragile and that we all need to be involved in order to protect it. When all this is over, we will need time to recover. but then we need to get to work. We have an opportunity to change ourselves and the world around us for the better. And I really do hope and think we can.
Man and woman touch infinity. Creatures on this planet, we reach above and beyond what we know. We invent devices that enable us to see far beyond our physical reach and to imagine even more. Our home is an immensity. We are small, but we live in a reality so large that it challenges us to be larger than we are. We live, move, and have our being in an eternity. Though our lifespans are brief in the eons of existence, we know this reality, acknowledge it, and seek to understand it. We live and move so that it matters. However short or long our reach in time and space, however much or little of eternity we can experience, what we do and what we know matters. Amen. Blessed be. I take my title and my inspiration this morning from Lawrence Ferlinghetti's poem, Wild Dreams of a New Beginning, which was published in 1976. This poem is a secular apocalyptic text. An apocalyptic text has to do with the end of the world. Many religious traditions have apocalyptic texts, including Christianity, where the final book of the New Testament is known as Revelation or the Apocalypse of John. This book is full of visions and heavenly beings. There are apocalypses in other biblical books as well, including Genesis and Isaiah. In these, the forces of the end time are supernatural. The same can be said of the Norse Ragnarok, of which I spoke briefly on December 4th, in the sermon about the boughs from the world tree. In Ferlinghetti's poem, the forces are natural, and these forces include humanity. More than once, he has spoken not of Armageddon, the traditional word associated with the apocalypse, the great battle between good and evil at the end time, but of Autogeddon, the destruction of the world by the automobile. Especially in times of desperation or extreme evil, apocalypses are appealing. They are appealing because they point to the possibility of overcoming evil or threatened destruction. And they usually do this by recounting the destruction and then also telling of a rebirth of the world. And that is when new beginnings are possible, when a better world is possible. Now, I have heard people use apocalyptic language to describe the years of the Trump administration, particularly in relation to the environment and the expectation of a new birth with the transition to the Biden administration on January 20th. Now, while it is my personal opinion that the Trump administration has been disastrous and the transition promises to be positive, especially in matters of environmental policy, it is not the case that we are living in the waning days of an evil era and are about to enter a new era where goodness will reign. Reality is more complicated than that. 46% of the votes cast were to have Trump serve a second term. And truth be told, much of the government and the economy functions no matter who is in the White House. Presidents can drive large-scale change, and there have been some large-scale changes over the past 4 years. But much has not changed, and forces outside the administration and even outside of government have been and will continue to be just as important in shaping and sustaining the world in which we live. However, the combination of the change in administrations, a sense of relief among many people in my circles certainly, and the start of a new year, combine in my mind to prompt wild dreams of new beginnings. Lawrence Ferlinghetti's poem presents a dream of renewal of nature. It really is in the apocalyptic tradition, and this is in keeping with the views of the role of the poet. In 2007, he wrote, "I am signaling now through the flames. The North Pole is not where it used to be. Manifest destiny is no longer manifest. Civilization self-destructs. Nemesis is knocking at the door. Where are the poets in such an age? What is the use of poetry? The state of the world calls for poetry to save it. If you would be a poet, create works capable of answering the challenge of apocalyptic times, even if this means sounding apocalyptic." Which is what the poet has done in the 20th and 21st centuries, and what the Hebrew poets and prophets did millennia earlier. Apocalyptic thinking can point solely to destruction, but it can also point to a new beginning or rebirth in or of the world. Take, for example, this well-known passage from the biblical book of Amos, dating to the 8th century before the Common Era. I despise your festivals, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals, I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. This passage exemplifies what the theological ethicist Walter Brueggemann calls the prophetic imagination. The prophetic imagination is the voice of the oppressed and of their champions. In this sense, the prophet does not predict the future so much as speak to what the future must be. And this requires a critique of the world in the present. The prophet often speaks in poetry because poetry is not the language of laws, rules, commands, or management. It is the language of possibility and imagination. In the face of climate change and rising oceans, individual and state violence, seemingly unending wars abroad, economic injustice, and racism here in the United States, we need not just to name the wrongs, we need to have wild dreams to create the reality of justice and hope in the future. I personally would love to be a poet of possibility. And actually, I think anyone can be a poet of possibility. Now, today is the second Sunday of the new year, 2021. Now, a few New Year's resolutions have probably been broken already, and others still stand, meaning that individuals may well succeed at making a change, perhaps a small change, perhaps a big change, that will prove to be significant in their lives. New Year's resolutions are often mundane, focusing on changing a bad habit or tinkering around the edges of our lives. And last week, Corey Ness invited you to dissolve regrets and bad feelings, that is, to purge them from your consciousness, so that you can move forward in the new year in a positive way, leaving the negatives behind. Sadly, however, not all the negatives can be left behind. I know this because it reminds me of my childhood. This is partly because I was a child in the 1950s and the early 1960s. I grew up with the threat of nuclear war, neighbors building bomb shelters, and the book-reading teens of my generation reading dystopian novels like Brave New World and 1984. And in fact, we lived at least a part of our childhood in a dystopia. The United States of the 1950s and early 60s, the United States USSR nuclear arms race, neighbors on my street building bomb shelters because of the dangers of nuclear war, and so on and so on. It was a repressive and terrifying time. Anti-communism stifled dissent and led to the imprisonment and blacklisting of citizens who had been working in government, business, and the arts. That dystopia is also the dystopia of Trump's childhood. He's a few years older than I am. But it is also Trump's normal. Over the past 4 years, the presidency has recycled the politics of that long, dismal, and past decade, a decade marked by white supremacy, racial segregation, heterosexism, the Hollywood blacklist, the nuclear arms race, and much more. Yet in spite of suppression and oppression, creativity and free thinking flourished, even if artists could not make a living in their art, and censorship in films and publications was real and blatant. The political ethos of the 1950s was revived by the presidential administration that is now in its final days. Groups such as the Proud Boys and bands of white men operating within a racist frame will continue to challenge the freedoms and openness that are essential to democracy, thinking that they themselves are the ones who are free and living freedom. This week we saw some of the dystopian nightmares become real. The United States Capitol was stormed on Wednesday by hundreds of white people who share the ethos that white makes right. We are long past that time, but there are forces seeking to pull us back there, and the soon-to-be former President Trump has been a leader of these reactionary forces. As religious liberals, we constitute a free church, one of the institutions that sustains and nurtures a free and open society. It does this in 3 ways. 1, by being a free space where all beliefs and ideas are welcome and conformity is not required. 2, by providing leadership in movements for civil rights and liberties, for peace and justice. 3, by supporting and sustaining adults and children, thus modeling life as it could possibly be for all. So why not dream wildly about what you can do in the new year and a new beginning? This church is a place for dreaming as well as for doing. Well, here are some of my wild dreams. You may or may not share them. You may have different dreams. They may be equally wild or even more wild than mine. I dream of increased socialism in the United States. I believe that we need it and that we can make it happen. Nonviolently and with patience. It would look like an apocalypse to the wealthiest 1 or 2% of the population if we do achieve increased socialism. To me, it would look like democracy with economic and political power less centralized than it is in monopoly capitalism. I dream of an ecologically balanced world where human creation and wilderness can both flourish. Human beings are part of nature, and everything we create, whether life-giving or life-destroying, is also a part of nature. It is our job to balance that. I dream of a world where all children are well nourished and educated well. I dream of a world where people of all faiths and ethnicities engage with each other as equals and with respect and collaborate for the well-being of all. These dreams require a more highly developed and more ethical politics than we have today. This requires not the politics of the mob taking over the building. It is a politics, though, that may require nonviolent direct action, as well as elections and person-to-person organizing around issues and creating supportive structures at home and in neighborhoods. In short, we need to sustain and enlarge those forms of democratic community and means of action for change that are just and humane, while at the same time resisting the violence that others, including the state, engage in, the violence that we are sometimes tempted to engage in, and indeed refusing, except in self-defense, to engage in violence ourselves. Amen. Blessed be.
Even as you are separated and sitting in your own homes today, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is nevertheless a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you, the people. The church is open even when the building is closed. Each week, we share our full Sunday plate with a community organization. During the month of January, our offering will go to Rebuilding Together Greater Harrisburg. For the past 25 years, Rebuilding Together Greater Harrisburg, or RTGH, has been providing free home repair and modification services to low-income homeowners, such as the elderly, disabled, families with children, and veterans, in Dauphin, Cumberland, Perry, and Upper York counties. RTGH's goal is to make a sustainable impact and preserve affordable home ownership. UCH member David Powell has volunteered at RTGH for many years and would welcome the opportunity and the company of any other UCH member who owns a toolbox and knows how to use it to join him. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please be generous.
Rejoice in love, whose now and
I call upon each one of us to dream freely, boldly, without embarrassment or timidity. What have you been dreaming? I ask you now to hold one of your wild dreams, perhaps the wildest, in your mind's eye for a few moments. Now I ask you to think of what it would be like to make that dream a reality. Let each one of us and all of us gathered together dream wildly of new beginnings, and may we act to make our dreams real. Blessed be. Amen.
Ring out wild bells to the wild, wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty night. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let it die. Ring out the old, ring in the new. Ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind. For those that hear we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to humankind. Ring out false pride in place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring in the love of truth and right. Ring in the common love of good.
Dream wildly and take to heart these words of the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is hard and the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. And to this I add, take courage to dream wildly, to act on your dreams, and to make this the best year possible for your life and for our world. Blessed be. Amen.